Our story begins with a man who crossed into a game world 500 years in the future, carrying a max-level account and the power to crush anything in his path. Even his former subordinates have now become powerful lords of their own domains. You see, Newgate was once the most popular VR game, until one day, a curse struck, preventing players from logging out. To make matters worse, dying within the game meant dying in the real world as well. To end this nightmare, our protagonist fought his way through every obstacle until he finally faced the ultimate boss. But then, something unexpected happened. Despite successfully slaying the final boss with his massive blade and allowing all the trapped players to finally return home, just as he prepared to log out himself, a blinding white light flashed, and, as fate would have it, things didn't go quite as planned. The system transported him 500 years into the game's future, though at this moment, he was completely unaware of his new reality. Feeling the physical sensations of leaving the old game world, he assumed he had finally returned to reality. But a second later, the game interface popped up again. Right before his eyes were his original stats, which far exceeded the game's limits. Naturally, he tried to log out once more, only to find that the exit button had vanished again, and even his friend list was inaccessible due to a lack of connection. It was then that he finally realized he had been transmigrated directly into the game world itself. However, being a man of action, he quickly accepted his new reality and decided to head back to his old in-game base to investigate. Upon arriving, he confirmed it was indeed the moon sanctuary he had built, yet he didn't recognize a single person there. From the looks of it, 3 men were clearly trying to kidnap a young girl. But just as they dragged her out of the house, a monster blocked their path. Terrified, the 3 men abandoned the girl and fled for their lives, which was not exactly heroic, to be honest. As the monster lunged at the girl, our protagonist stepped in at the very last second, effortlessly dispatching the beast and saving her. Afterward, the girl expressed her gratitude. Her name is Tina, and she isn't the owner here. She simply looks after the shop and relays messages for her master. When he heard her master's name was Schnee, he couldn't hide his excitement. Schnee, as it turns out, was one of his support NPCs in the game. He explained that he and Schnee were old acquaintances and asked if she knew of her current whereabouts. Seeing his intense reaction, Tina said she could only pass on a message rather than reveal a location, and that each message would come with a fee. The fee was 1,000 Lu, but our protagonist had never even heard of such a currency. When he pulled a gold coin from his inventory, Tina's composure vanished. You see, an item box is a luxury only a few kings of certain races can use, and a single gold coin is worth a staggering 10 billion Lu. Beyond its wealth, the coin can amplify magical effects, making it an incredibly rare treasure. Naturally, this made her even more suspicious of his true origins. Faced with her confusion, he took a moment to reflect on the original game's mechanics and history. He considered the world's settings and the timeline Tina had described to piece together the truth. Based on her information, he deduced that the timeline shifted right when everyone was logging out after the final boss was defeated. It finally clicked for him. He had been transported 500 years into the future of the game world. A bit of a jump, to be honest. As a reward for her intel, he simply gave the gold coin to Tina. He figured that since she was an elf, she could use it to boost her magic. This gesture left Tina in complete shock once again. She hadn't expected him to see right through the illusion magic she was wearing. It turns out Tina is indeed an elf, but those with black hair are viewed as omens of misfortune by their kin, believed to bring nothing but disaster. Supposedly, her presence attracts monsters, which led to her being driven out of her village. She wandered alone until she met Schnee. Schnee didn't just set up a barrier around the shop. She used illusion magic to hide Tina's true appearance, allowing her to live in peace for a century. Tina had intended to live quietly without bothering anyone, but our protagonist noticed something odd about her situation. He realized her hair wasn't always black. It had changed suddenly one day due to a curse, which explained why monsters were so drawn to her. It was a heavy burden for one girl to carry. Using his analysis skill, he deciphered the mechanics of the curse and prepared a purification spell, something even Schnee hadn't been able to break. The purification was a success, though only a small lock of her hair returned to its original white. Still, it was a start. Tina was moved to tears by the sight. It had been 100 long years since she had last seen her true hair color. After that, they stepped outside. They took a walk around the house, and when no monsters appeared to attack, Tina knew the curse was truly gone. To show her gratitude, she gave him a letter of introduction. With this letter in hand, he would be able to pass through any human town or city without issue. It was a powerful tool for a man just starting his journey in this strange, distant future. And so, his new adventure truly began. And so, our story moves forward as he arrives at the local guild to present his credentials. The guild master sought out our protagonist immediately, as she wasn't entirely sure if the letter of introduction he held was genuine. After a brief conversation, the guild master confirmed the letter was indeed authentic. She warned him to guard it with his life, as this document wasn't just a simple pass. In every nation, it allows the holder to bypass all inspections and move freely through any adventurer's guild. In certain kingdoms, it even grants a direct audience with the king. All of this influence came from Shni's reputation. He hadn't expected his former NPC companion to become such a legend. It seems she became quite the powerhouse over the last 500 years. After successfully registering as an adventurer, he changed into a more low-key outfit and headed into the forest for a simple herb-gathering quest. But before he could find any herbs, he stumbled upon a skull-face rider. Seeing the monster's level at a staggering 359 and the wreckage of a nearby carriage, he knew he couldn't just walk away. If he let this creature roam free, it would surely cause more casualties. However, after exchanging a few blows, he realized this was no ordinary foe. Despite being an undead monster, it was wielding a great sword imbued with the light attribute. To be honest, that is a bit of a contradiction. Realizing he was facing a rare, unique monster, he grew eager to defeat it just to see what kind of loot it might drop. But after a few more strikes, he noticed his weapon's durability had reached its limit. He had exactly one swing left before it shattered, and so he decided to use a specialized skill to test just how powerful he truly was in this new era. After defeating the Skull Rider, he collected a precious gem as a reward. He now had a better grasp of his standing in this world, but he had no idea that the monster's great sword, which he had sent flying, had crashed directly into Princess Liang's private chambers. A bit of an oversight. Returning to town, he saw the injured adventurers who had been attacked by the rider. Because that sword landed in the palace, the guards were on high alert. The authorities ordered a strict investigation into the incident. Hearing this, he wisely decided not to mention he was the one who launched the sword. When he returned to the guild to turn in his quest, the hall was packed with adventurers discussing how to eliminate the very threat he had just killed. To their collective shock, he announced he had already dealt with the Skull Rider, producing the gem as proof of his victory. When the staff realized it was an elite level 359 monster, they were utterly stunned. After all, a beast of that rank usually requires an entire elite raid team. The guild master immediately called a high-level meeting with national leaders, while the knight commander was desperate to identify who had defeated the Skull Rider. After all, the greatsword that crashed into the palace was imbued with permanent light magic, making it sharper than any national treasure. Although our protagonist asked the guild master to keep his identity a secret, the authorities were naturally curious to know who possessed such incredible power. Meanwhile, as he was enjoying a quiet meal, a man approached him. We see the other patrons watching with looks of pure terror, and for good reason. He recognized the man's weapon instantly, the legendary magic spear, Venom. It possesses the unique ability to drain the life force of others and grant it to the wielder. It is precisely because of this power that people fear him so much, terrified that simply standing near him might cause their life force to wither away. Because of this, the man earned the nickname, the Vampire. It turns out he sought out our hero because he had heard rumors of his recent exploits. Since he specializes in hunting undead monsters, he wanted to introduce himself. Later, while our protagonist was enjoying some street food, he noticed a little girl staring at him longingly. Being kind-hearted, he offered her a skewer, but that was exactly when the vampire appeared again. However, he wasn't there for our hero this time. He was looking for the girl. Her name is Millie, a child from the church orphanage who often sneaks out. The vampire had been sent to bring Millie back home. Yet, just as the two of them were saying their goodbyes, Millie suddenly ran back to him. She whispered a strange request, urging him to go to the northern forest to rescue a fox. To be honest, he was left feeling quite bewildered by this. Despite his confusion, he decided to investigate the northern forest. But first, he returned to the moon sanctuary to speak with Tiana. He wanted her to send a message to her master, Shni, saying that if she remembered this sword, they should meet and talk. Tiana recognized the blade instantly. The sword was an ancient relic, containing a level of power that she found completely overwhelming. Just looking at it made her feel as though she was being swallowed whole. He explained that this was likely due to the materials used, a black dragon's tooth, the power of a sea beast, and the tears of a spirit fox. Hearing the names of these three monsters, Tiana finally understood the weight of the situation. You see, the three creatures he mentioned are all legendary divine beasts. He then handed several envelopes to Tiana to give to Shni. He explained that if she had news, she could use these to contact him. One simply writes the recipient's name and says, "Send," to deliver it anywhere. However, since he had failed to reach Shni the previous night, he suspected they might need to meet in person in this world first. After handling his business, our protagonist found himself with some free time, so he headed to the northern forest to find the fox Millie mentioned. Suddenly, a voice echoed from the depths of the forest, warning him to leave. Fortunately, he had enhanced his resistance to mental interference, so he remained completely unaffected. Still, it was clear that something massive was lurking nearby. Following the voice, he discovered a hidden shrine where the mental pressure finally vanished. It seemed he had reached the center of the barrier. Opening the doors, he found a small fox trapped inside a magical formation. This was undoubtedly the creature Millie had been worried about. After confirming there were no traps, he stepped inside the circle to check the fox's condition. He discovered the poor thing wasn't just poisoned, but also heavily cursed. He had to act quickly. After a series of expert maneuvers, the little fox's vitality began to return. However, the peace was short-lived as a horde of enemies suddenly appeared. Stepping outside, he saw skull knights surrounding the building. To be perfectly honest, a few skeletons weren't exactly going to ruin his afternoon. He made short work of the knights, but his radar warned him that 2 more enemies were still hiding in the shadows, waiting for their moment. He noticed the nearby statues looked suspicious just before 2 massive monsters burst from the stone. These were creatures he had never encountered before. Their levels were staggering, reaching as high as 674. Without a hint of hesitation, the 2 foxes launched a coordinated elemental assault of fire and ice. Our hero wasn't about to be polite, responding instantly with a shadow bind that pinned both foxes firmly in place. However, these foxes were far from simple. They used a deceptive mist to plunge the area into darkness, completely robbing him of his vision. In this pitch-black void, he couldn't track their movements. But then, the little fox in his arms nudged him. Following its gaze, he spotted a faint glimmer of light. It was the magic circle where the little fox had been resting. He stepped into it decisively, and from that vantage point, he could finally see exactly where the 2 foxes were hiding. For someone as powerful as our protagonist, things had just become much simpler. After dealing with the 2 attackers, he checked the little fox's stats and was shocked to find it was actually a spirit fox. In the game, these were top-tier divine beasts, though they usually appeared as humans or giants. He had never heard of a version quite this small. Having been saved, the spirit fox decided to follow him as its new master. Meanwhile, in another part of the world, the powerful Schnee received the urgent message that Tiana had sent on his behalf. The spearman never imagined that this rookie adventurer, who had only registered yesterday, was actually a max-level powerhouse who could wipe out entire swarms of monsters with a single wave of his hand, landing critical hits of 999 with every strike. Just a short while ago, our protagonist gave the fox the name Yuya and took it as his pet before heading to the Adventurers Guild. He intended to report the massive undead presence he encountered while saving the fox, but he didn't expect the twin receptionists to start arguing over who would get to assist him. Quite speechless, he explained the situation at high speed and prepared to leave. As he was departing the guild, a quest seeking a skill successor caught his eye. Driven by curiosity, he made his way to the church that posted the request, planning to complete the task while checking in on Millie. After confirming that Yuya was indeed the fox she wanted him to save, he had Yuya thank her. After all, it was only because of Millie that he had rescued the creature. He then spoke with the Archbishop about the request. It turned out the Archbishop was looking for someone to pass the purification skill onto them. Of course, he knew that skill successors were rare, and those with purification were rarer still. Nevertheless, he wanted to commission our hero to help find one. But as a max-level king, our protagonist had every skill imaginable. To him, purification was merely a low-tier ability, and he had no problem teaching it to them. However, he did have one condition they had to tell him. If Millie possessed the power of foresight, and he hoped the church would provide him with future intelligence. In this strange world, the church served as an excellent information network. Regarding his request, Millie spoke up, saying it was perfectly fine to tell Brother Jing everything. Seeing Millie's absolute trust in him, the nun agreed to his request. It turned out Millie was a battle seer with the power of prophecy. She would suddenly see visions of the future, and so far, her predictions had never been wrong. No wonder the nun had looked so serious before. Such an ability could cause chaos if the wrong people found out. Next, the bishop requested that he teach the purification skill to another girl in the church, the granddaughter of the former priest. It wasn't for the bishop himself, suggesting there was more to the story. Later, Millie took our hero to meet the other children at the orphanage. From them, we learn that this church no longer has a priest, and the incoming one is a greedy man who intends to demolish the orphanage entirely. And since the standard for becoming a priest requires the ability to use purification, they've asked our hero for this favor. If the former priest's granddaughter can inherit the church before the new one arrives, the orphanage might be saved. Soon after, he meets the girl, Lashia, but before teaching the skill, he wants to know where to find a large concentration of high-level undead. The bishop suggests a place called the Undead Plains. Just as the words leave his mouth, the vampire will bursts in. Upon learning that our hero knows Millie is a battle seer, Will demands to be included in the purification training to ensure no secrets are leaked. Our protagonist agrees and explains that to learn the skill, one must hold the sacred prayer item while defeating 200 undead monsters of level 150 or higher. It sounds like an impossible task, but Lashia only needs to land the final blow. To ensure her safety, of course, Will intends to tag along. However, our hero's absolute confidence in facing 200 high-level monsters alone with Lashia makes Will suspect that Jing might be a chosen one. Later, Will intercepts him on his way back and asks the question directly. Are you a chosen one? Our hero is completely baffled by the term. Seeing his confusion, Will explains that a chosen one is someone born with unique skills, titles, and knowledge unattainable by ordinary people, knowledge covering items and monsters alike. Hearing this, Jing suspects a reincarnation system might exist in this world. He recalls his own past in the game, but since he wasn't exactly born here, he eventually dismisses the theory. Just then, he receives a letter from Tiana. She has passed his message to Shuni, who will rush back to meet him as soon as her work is finished. Early the next morning, the three of them arrive at the undead plains. It's the perfect spot, as the sheer number of monsters will help Lashia max out her skill requirements quickly. Our hero begins the plan. He will do the heavy lifting, weakening the monsters, so that Lashia can finish them off with her sacred prayer. In no time at all, this power leveling session brings Lashia from level 1 to 150. While they are busy boosting the girl's level, we see that elsewhere, the Imperial Princess is leading her own forces to eliminate the massive swarms of skeletons that have recently begun to appear. Just as the Imperial Princess finds herself at a total loss, Shuni suddenly appears to join the operation. Facing the powerful skeleton swarm, she effortlessly wipes them out. The Imperial Princess was being assisted by Shuni in resolving the crisis at Mara. After helping the knights solve their troubles, Shuni has no interest in the Knight Commander's praise. She immediately rushes back, having just received our hero's letter. She is desperate to see her master, completely unaware that Jing is also currently at the undead plains. Meanwhile, under the combined efforts of our hero and the vampire, Lashia finally learns the purification skill. But just as the three prepare to leave the plains, a black hole suddenly tears through the sky, a magical convergence of undead energy. Following a surge of dark power, the black hole transforms into a massive skeletal monster whose level is a staggering 804. According to Lashia, this is a creature capable of destroying an entire nation. While the group stands there in shock, the skeleton monster suddenly leaps up and shatters the barrier sealing the undead plains with a single punch. Lashia, terrified by the sight, collapses to the ground. Will grabs her, throws her over his shoulder, and prepares to bolt. At that moment, the monster lets out a deafening roar. The group watches, confused, as countless lesser skeletons crawl out of the earth and surround them. Will's first instinct is to break through and escape, but our hero announces he is staying behind. He immediately releases the seal on his own restricted power. Since the barrier is broken, he simply cannot allow this creature to endanger the world. Seeing the invincible aura radiating from Jing, Will finally relaxes. He decides to take Lashia and leave first. Our hero casts a speed buff on them both, but at the critical moment, the little spirit Yui clings to Jing's head, refusing to leave no matter what. Seeing this, he has no choice but to let her stay. Then, our hero unleashes a double cast lightning strike. To his surprise, the skeleton monster roars again, summoning yet another swarm of soldiers. For the sake of efficiency, our hero releases a skill that wipes out a massive portion of them instantly. Meanwhile, Shuni notices the commotion while rushing toward him. Looking at a map filled with monsters, Jing sighs, wishing Shuni were here to help. As it turns out, he didn't have to wait long. A blue icon suddenly appears on his map, and realizing it's Shuni, he immediately rushes to meet her. The two finally reunite under a sea of flowers, but before Jing can even say hello, the skeleton monster rudely interrupts their moment. Little Yui, being quite sensible, drops down from Jing's head to activate a barrier for them. Our hero barely has time to thank the little spirit before Shuni suddenly pulls him into a tight embrace. But before they can share any secrets, Yui's magic runs dry, and the giant skeleton catches up to them. Annoyed at being interrupted again, the two decide to show it their true power. Together, they summon a combination skill, the Holy Maiden, which not only clears out the surrounding lesser monsters, but also heals little Yui after her ordeal. With the distractions gone, Jing strikes directly at the skeleton lord. Facing our hero's max level strength, the monster can only die in despair. However, as the skeleton falls, it utters a few words that make very little sense. Jing is surprised the creature could speak at all, but dead men tell no tales. Finally, the two have a moment to catch up, and our hero explains the story of how he traveled here from the game world. In turn, Shuni shares her own experiences from the last 500 years. It seems that after Jing finished the game, these NPCs were supposed to vanish, but they not only remained, they developed self-awareness. Confused by this, Shuni and the others began searching for their master, but even after 500 years, they found nothing. During that time, the servants were scattered by shifts in the earth, leaving Shuni to wait alone at the moon shrine until now. Jing, however, is less concerned with the history and more preoccupied with Shuni calling him master. It makes him a bit uneasy. If she were still just a programmed NPC, it would be fine, but she is now a very real, living person. And so, our hero asks Shuni to simply call him by his name. Before they even realized it, the night had slipped away. The two of them had talked until the first light of dawn. As they prepared to return to the moon shrine, we see that a certain little fox has caught Shuni's attention. It seemed his tails had multiplied, growing from 1 to 3, and to be honest, he could now speak quite clearly. As it turns out, the spirit fox tribe was always capable of speech. They had simply been living under a curse. Those 3 tails were the result of a sudden evolution triggered by the battle. Naturally, Jing told him to keep quiet. After all, ordinary fox demons don't talk. To solve the tail problem, Yui used an illusion to hide the extra ones. At that moment, Jing remembered the fleeing will. If he returned to the guild and brought others back, things would get messy. To avoid that trouble, our duo rushed after them at full speed, which gave the vampire quite a fright. Will sensed something approaching rapidly. Just as he prepared to strike, he realized it was only Jing catching up. Meanwhile, the princess and her group discovered the traces of Jing's battle, pondering the sudden appearance of the skeletons. They also noted the strange light in the sky. Soon, a subordinate found something left behind by Jing's powerful move. Based on the bird emblem on the hilt, the subordinate showed the princess just how powerful this weapon truly was. Judging by the blade's strength, they concluded the creator was a high-tier human blacksmith, none other than our hero. Jing had no idea that while he was busy, his secret world was starting to crumble around him. It was as if the very sky was falling, and he was right in the center of it, though he didn't know it yet. Before that, we'll watch Jing acting so familiar with the famous Shuni and demanded a very thorough explanation. Jing didn't want to reveal his true identity, hoping Shuni could provide some cover, but Will wasn't buying it. Our hero's mana was simply too overwhelming to ignore. Even without an explanation, Will sensed Jing was something far beyond ordinary. When our hero asked if there were any records of high humans left in the world, Will recalled that they weren't just incredibly strong. In fact, they possessed extraordinary abilities in every field and are now revered almost like gods. Hearing this, Jing remembered his own talent for forging and offered to upgrade Will's weapons at a discount, a generous gesture, to be sure. Just then, Leixia woke up, and upon realizing the famous Shuni was standing right there, she instantly turned into a total fangirl. And so just as the group reached the city gates, Jing handed over some message items to Will, who took one with a look of absolute gravity. Will warned him that if things became serious enough to use it, Jing would be dragged into the mess. Our hero, naturally, didn't mind. After all, Will was the first real friend he had made here. As they said their goodbyes, Shuni noted that Jing hadn't changed a bit. Despite his overwhelming power, he never became arrogant, always treating others as equals, a quality she had always admired in him. Later, as Jing and Shuni returned to the Moon Shrine, Tina came running out in a panic to explain something to Shuni. She was trying to mention Jing's previous visit, but before she could finish, she realized he was standing right behind her. While Tina was still processing this, Shuni dropped the bombshell. Jing was actually the owner of the Moon Shrine, leaving the girl utterly speechless. Tina immediately began apologizing profusely, horrified that she had previously tried to demand billions of coins from her own boss. Jing didn't care at all, simply noting he had plenty to spare. That evening, Shuni cooked a feast of dishes Tina had never even seen. Tina could sense a powerful aura radiating from the food, and Jing explained the secret behind the ingredients. Every dish was made from the rarest parts of various monster kings, materials Tina knew were practically impossible to obtain in this world. Using such legendary treasures for a simple dinner was unheard of, but for Jing, it was just another Tuesday. The three of them enjoyed the meal together. By the end, Tina had perhaps enjoyed the wine a bit too much. Jing had Shuni help her to bed before retiring to his own room. He expected a peaceful night in his familiar home after 500 years, but at midnight, a strange sensation suddenly jolted him awake. We find Shuni lying right beside our hero, and to be honest, he'd be lying if he said he wasn't a little excited. However, he notices tears in her eyes as she sleeps. She calls out his name in her dreams, stirring a strange sense of affection in him. With a beautiful woman by his side, Jing sleeps soundly until dawn. Upon waking, he discovers something strange under the covers. The little fox has transformed into a cute young girl. He quickly has the girl, Yui, get dressed. He then brings her before Shuni and Tina for an introduction. Seeing the little fox in human form, Tina isn't even shocked anymore. After all, compared to the surprises she faced yesterday, she's grown quite used to the unusual. After breakfast, Shuni mentions she wants Jing to accompany her to see Gyrat. At the mention of that name, our hero loses his composure slightly, as Gyrat was once one of his assistants, just like Shuni. However, high-ranking beastmen usually only live 150 years. He wonders if she could possibly still be alive. Shuni explains that while she hasn't passed away just yet, her days are likely numbered. She had united the beastman tribes into an alliance and became the very first beast king. By now, the leadership has reached the 8th generation of beast kings, and the alliance has grown into a massive power. In this current world, they hold significant influence, which is how she was able to wait for him in peace. To see her as soon as possible, Jing decides to set out. The very next day, he plans to bring Tina along, while Yui will be tucked away in his spatial storage for the journey. Meanwhile, Shuni explains she must first report the Skeleton Lord incident to the kingdom. Once finished, she'll reunite with Jing to stay in touch. They form a party once again, allowing them to use the team voice chat at any time. It turns out that in this world, certain game functions still work, though they are now called divine words. Naturally, only Jing can actually see the interface panels. Later, our hero goes to the Moon Shrine's forge. In a mere 2.5 seconds, he crafts a weapon, unintentionally imbuing it with powerful magic that far exceeds any weapon sold in this country. He then repeats the process, effortlessly churning out a whole pile of divine artifacts. This should last them a while. After all, Jing's magic is so overwhelming that for him, even legendary swords are basically disposables. Just then, Tina arrives, newly dressed and ready. Having not left home in over 100 years, she feels like she's going on a school field trip. The next day, Jing takes Tina to town to pick up some quests and register her as an adventurer. However, when they arrive at the guild, he notices something about his own guild card. The receptionist explains that after an investigation, they confirmed Jing had defeated the Skeleton Knight. And because he effectively neutralized a massive army of skeletons, the guild decided to raise Jing's rank as a reward. Just then, the receptionist notices Tina standing beside him. Our hero explains that she's here to register as an adventurer, which leads the lady to mistakenly assume they are a couple. To change the subject, Jing asks for information regarding the Holy Land, but he's told that such secrets are only shared with B-rank adventurers. And above, seeing no other choice, he decides to wait until his rank is high enough. He then asks if there are any commissions heading toward Fanai that they could complete along the way. After a quick search, the receptionist finds an escort mission departing in just 3 hours, which already has 2 other adventurers signed up. Since Tina's guild card will take some time to process, our hero decides to take her for a stroll around town to help her adjust. Eventually, they arrive at the church, where they learn that Leixia has already become a priestess and taken over this parish. When Jing asks about Will's whereabouts, the bishop informs him that Will went to investigate the priest who was originally supposed to take over, fearing the man might not give up so easily. To be safe, Jing hands over a bracelet and a pendant to the group. These items are, of course, imbued with powerful magic. After saying their goodbyes, they find Tina's guild card is ready. Jing decides it's time to go back and retrieve the moon shrine. To save time, he simply pulls out a teleportation stone to warp them there. While this was a perfectly ordinary item back in the game, it gives Tina quite a shock. After all, in this modern world, teleportation magic has long been lost. Such an item would fetch a fortune from countless buyers, yet our hero uses it for such a trivial errand without a second thought. Following a brief distortion in space, the two arrive at the moon shrine. Then, with a simple wave of his hand toward the building, Jing shrinks the entire house and tucks it away. This is the moon shrine's portable mode. Although every player could do this in the past, Tina has never seen anything like it, and her jaw practically hits the floor. Next, the two use another teleportation stone to reach the mission's meeting point, where a dragonkin and a redhead have already been waiting for some time. Once everyone boards the carriage, the elderly client leads the group out. Meanwhile, news reaches the king that the moon shrine has vanished, which gives His Majesty quite a headache. After all, that was the only mysterious shop still selling high-tier weapons since the high humans disappeared. Furthermore, for 500 years, not even the most powerful monsters had been able to set foot inside it. For now, the king can only wait for Shuni to arrive before making a final decision. Meanwhile, Jing and his group haven't been on the road long before they encounter a band of bandits. These thugs aren't just looking for gold. They want blood, declaring immediately that they'll kill the men and keep the women for their own amusement. Hearing their vile, unfiltered threats, Jing finds himself completely provoked. As a cold, murderous intent begins to radiate from him, Tina realizes things are about to get ugly. Just as she hesitates, wondering if she should step in and stop them, the young dragonkin beside them draws his sword first. This, however, only makes the bandits howl with laughter. They are quite certain that the dragonkin is the only rank 1 adventurer here, while the others are even weaker. Hearing this, our group realizes that this encounter wasn't a coincidence. Someone has intentionally sold out their location. While the bandits continue their insults, an arrow suddenly whistles through the air. It cuts the bandit leader off mid-sentence and strikes down an accomplice who was lying in ambush behind them. It turns out that the one who took the shot was Tina, and the battle erupts instantly. The redhead suddenly uses a flash step skill, closing the distance with a powerful uppercut that sends a bandit flying. To be honest, this isn't the kind of skill a rank 1 adventurer should possess. Following her lead, the dragonkin delivers a casual strike, cleaving through both man and sword in a single motion. When it's Jing's turn to face these bandits, his style of combat is deceptively simple and unadorned. The bandit leader is utterly shocked. They are all armed with magic swords, and aside from the dragonkin, the others are supposed to be rank 1. He cannot understand why they are being defeated so thoroughly. A moment later, Jing shatters the leader's sword with a single blow. Now, facing our hero, the leader is drenched in a cold sweat. Jing doesn't waste words, delivering a swift beating before tying him up. This is actually an act of mercy on his part, yet the bandit remains ungrateful, continuing to shout arrogant threats. Seeing this, Jing decides it's time to send him to the afterlife. Sensing the heavy killing intent coming from him, Tina suddenly steps forward and pulls him into a tight, unexpected embrace. While this sudden gesture successfully snaps Jing out of his dark mood, it leaves our hero feeling completely dazed and confused. It turns out that Shuni used to comfort her in the exact same way. Back then, she felt her master's embrace was warm and healing. So without thinking much, she did the same for Jing. Realizing what she's done, her face turns bright red, and she suddenly has no idea how to face him. As for our protagonist, he's left standing there in silence, wondering what just happened, which, naturally, makes for a rather awkward atmosphere for the rest of the journey. He never could have imagined that his subordinate, who originally had a lifespan of only 150 years, would survive for 500 years just to have one final battle. In fact, he has stubbornly endured all that time, and now, in his desperate quest to defeat Jing, he has even evolved into a powerful monster. Not long after this, we see our group successfully escort the merchant to their destination and receive the official certificate of completion for the mission. Once they hand this over to the Adventurers Guild, the job will be officially finished. After collecting their rewards and leaving the guild, the group prepares to part ways. The Dragonkin and Tina plan to head toward Gilmont next, while Jing and his companions intend to make their way toward Fannet. And so, they go their separate ways. Considering that Fannet is still quite a distance away, Jing decides it would be wise to purchase a carriage for the journey. Upon arriving at the market, he notices that all the carriages look more or less the same, so he considers buying one and customizing it himself. At this, Tina wonders aloud if he's planning to build a carriage that can actually fly through the sky. To be honest, with him, that wouldn't be entirely surprising. After comparing several options, she settles on a carriage so spacious that one could comfortably lie down inside. But it does have one significant drawback. Due to its massive size and weight, even the seller warns that it would take at least 2 horses to pull it, just as she considers having the White Fox pull it. Shuni, having finished her business with the kingdom, sends a message asking for Jing's location so she can join them immediately. It just so happens that Jing mentions he is looking for a beast to pull the carriage. Shuni decisively takes charge of the matter, suggesting she simply catch a monster along the way. She asks him to wait just one day for her arrival. She also reports that the disappearance of the Moon Sanctuary has caused quite a stir in the royal palace is in a complete state of panic. It seems they had been constantly monitoring and trying to recruit Shuni to use her power for the kingdom. In fact, some nations had even tried to seize ownership of the Moon Sanctuary in the past, and Shuni nearly wiped those entire countries off the map. Now that the sanctuary is gone, she is finally free from those annoying trivialities and can focus on following Jing wherever he goes. After finishing his conversation with Shuni, Jing decides to find an inn for the night and wait for her so they can set off together to meet the Beast King. Meanwhile, Shuni has already scouted out a suitable magical beast to pull the carriage and is ready to bring it along. The next day, Jing returns to the carriage shop. After making a few more modifications, he receives word from Shuni that she has arrived in the forest just outside the city. However, when the two of them arrive to meet her, they are left utterly speechless. It turns out the beast she brought is a level 751 divine grade monster. Jing can't help but wonder where exactly she found such a creature. Shuni simply explains she picked it up from the forest peaks, but a moment later, the beast approaches Tina and begins nuzzling her, appearing to be incredibly fond of the young girl. Eventually, it shrinks down to about the height of a person, ensuring its new form won't cause a riot in the streets. Since Yuya is also a divine beast, she can communicate with it, making things much easier. With everything ready, Jing officially sets out on the road to find his subordinate, Gilmont. As they travel, Yuya chats with the divine beast and learns her name is Yangyan. It turns out she once ruled the forest peaks alongside her mother. But after her mother was killed by adventurers, she was the only survivor. She was saved by a little elf girl, and as it happens, that girl was Tina. Years ago, she had found what she thought was an injured puppy by the road and, moved by pity, saved its life. Upon learning of this bond, Shuni decides to act. That night, while the group is resting, she officially transfers Yangyan's ownership over to Tina. Once Tina and the divine beast are fast asleep, Jing immediately sees through Shuni's true intentions for giving up the contract. After all, they might not always be by Tina's side. By making her Yangyan's master, she can summon protection whenever she needs it. From now on, she will have a guardian. Shuni adds that if Jing is ever in danger, she will naturally rush to his side as well. She promises to take him wherever he needs to go, asking him quite sincerely never to leave her behind again. Thanks to Yangyan's incredible speed, a journey that should have taken half a month is completed in just 2 days. They soon arrive at the Beastman Valley. Having received Shuni's message, the first Beast King sends his subordinates to welcome the group and lead them to his residence. Reunited after 500 long years, Gilmont is overjoyed. After the two sides briefly introduce the members of their respective camps, the 3 old friends sit down together to share a drink. Gilmont and Jing once fought side by side, slaying thousands of monsters together. They were each other's most reliable shields, and those days were truly glorious. However, as they discuss the present, the atmosphere suddenly turns serious. Gilmont reveals that his time is running out. The time that had stagnated within his body has begun to move again, almost as if it were simply waiting for Jing's arrival. If there are gods in this world, perhaps they finally heard his one final wish. Gilmont then makes a request. He wants a duel with Jing, a battle to the death to settle everything, as he wishes to die as a warrior in combat. He wonders just how far his own fangs can push the world's strongest warrior, and Jing, honoring his friend's final wish, accepts the challenge. That night, Gilmont gathers his kin to discuss the matter, explaining that he will soon face Jing in a duel to the death. He is prepared to fall in this battle, as his time has truly come. While the current Beast King is shocked, his subordinates remain calm. It seems they had expected this for a long time. Gilmon expresses that his lifelong wish is finally within reach, but at that moment, the Beast King's daughter stands up. She cannot understand why the legendary first Beast King would choose this path. Gilmon simply explains that he has lived far too long. He has watched his comrades fall and even seen his own son pass away before him. It is a heavy burden to carry for centuries, to be perfectly honest. Later, we see Jing receiving warm hospitality from Gilmon as they prepare for what is to come. Jing even sees the weapon he once gifted Gilmon. Though it is now severely damaged, with the moon's verse at his disposal, nothing is impossible. He leads the group to the Forge of the Moon's verse, where he begins the process of reforging the ancient weapon. Under his hands, the weapon is restored to its former glory, leaving everyone present utterly awestruck by his godlike smithing skills. Jing hands the restored gauntlets back to Gilmon, knowing that with his weapon returned, the old warrior will be able to fight at his absolute peak. Once the work is finished, Gilmon asks a question he has been harboring for days. Jing realizes he is actually concerned about Shuni. Gilmon asks if Jing finds a way back. Will he leave Shuni behind to return to his own world? It is a pointed, difficult question. Countless memories of his time with Shuni flash through Jing's mind, yet he affirms he will return, as that goal is what has kept him fighting. Understanding the resolve in Jing's heart, Gilmon says no more. The next day, when the appointed time finally arrives, Gilmon and Jing set out together for the dueling grounds. A short while later, the group arrives at the edge of the designated area. To ensure the shockwaves of their battle don't harm the others, Jing tells Shuni and the rest to keep a safe distance. Gilmon gives his final instructions to the current Beast King before he and Jing leap down into the canyon together, leaving a heavy silence behind. After a brief moment of testing each other's presence, both men let out a thunderous roar, and the final battle officially begins. The moment their weapons collide, a massive shockwave erupts, making the forest look as though a demolition crew has moved in. The sheer intensity of the battle leaves the current Beast King in awe, yet Shuni knows this is merely a warm-up for them. As the warm-up ends, Gilmon prepares to unleash his full power. His body begins to swell and expand, his face shifting back into the form of a wolf. Suddenly, a creature resembling a massive husky appears before Jing's eyes. In his beast form, Gilmon's attributes are significantly boosted. His speed reaches a new level, and his strength increases substantially. However, Jing remains perfectly composed, even when facing Gilmon's ultimate secret technique, the absolute strike. Our protagonist doesn't even bother to dodge, choosing instead to take the hit head-on. Gilmon follows up with a flawless series of complex maneuvers, but Jing deflects every single one of them with ease. At this moment, Jing truly feels the weight of everything Gilmon has sacrificed for this fight. To honor the old warrior's resolve, he finally decides to show a small fraction of his own true strength. He stands his ground, ready to meet the challenge, and besides, the timing couldn't be more appropriate. It is a fitting tribute to a man of Gilmon's stature, a legendary figure who lived by his own ironclad rules. With the atmosphere reaching its peak, Jing understands exactly what needs to be done. He respects Gilmon's intent, and so, in this final moment, he decides to let the old wolf witness his genuine power. The final battle concludes in an instant, and Jing carries Gilmon's body back as the others rush forward to check on them. Though the spark of life has left Gilmon, his face wears an expression of absolute contentment. We can see he left this world without a single regret. Later, on a somber rainy day, a funeral is held where beastmen from across the city gather to mourn their first king. Jing watches from a distance, his heart heavy with complex emotions. After the ceremony, he sits alone where he once spoke with Gilmon, staring blankly at the sky. Shuni, noticing his distress, rushes over to comfort him. She pulls him into a warm embrace, offering the kind of quiet comfort that only a true friend can provide. Deep down, Jing knows this was Gilmon's final wish, and while he has accepted the outcome of their duel, the loss of a comrade is still a heavy burden for him to carry. His emotions are a swirling, unstoppable tide, leaving him more vulnerable than we have ever seen him before. To be honest, he never expected that his usually stoic and serious maid would choose today, of all days, to try out a bit of cosplay, complete with elf ears and a matching spirit tail. This sudden beast girl transformation makes his heart skip a beat, momentarily distracting him from the news that his former subordinate, Monty, had also attended Gilmon's funeral. Intrigued, our group sets out to find him, and through Shuni, Jing learns that Monty once served as the first Dragon King, though he has since severed all ties with the royal family for unknown reasons. We see them arrive at a private room to wait, and before long, Monty steps through the door, prompting Jing to stand up in excitement. After dismissing his attendants, Monty immediately drops to one knee before Jing. After 500 years, he has finally found his master again. Jing tells him there is no need for such formality after such a long-awaited reunion, and as Monty relaxes, he finally notices Shuni's peculiar new outfit. As they settle into conversation, Monty asks Jing what his plans are for the future. Monty explains that he must return to the Dragon Kingdom first, but they can stay in touch via telepathy until they can reunite. Just as they are about to depart, Jing remembers something important and pulls out a familiar weapon. Monty is overcome with emotion, recognizing it as his personal weapon, the Wind Moon. Upon taking it, he realizes it feels better than ever. Jing explains that while he was repairing Gilmont's gear, he gave this a tune-up as well, boosting its performance by half. After bidding Monty farewell, the group heads to the local guild, aiming to raise their adventurer rank to C rank. Naturally, a goblin hunting quest is the perfect choice for two max-level powerhouses like Jing and Shuni to handle with ease. Just as our protagonist is turning in his quest, the receptionist hands him a letter sent directly from the capital's Adventurers Guild President. The contents are quite formal. Jing has been summoned by the royal family and must return to the kingdom immediately. This sudden summons leaves him looking completely bewildered, but with a quick hint from Shuni, he guesses it might be related to that skeleton knight he defeated earlier. That evening, Jing seeks out the Beast King to deliver Gilmont's gauntlets, fulfilling the final request his friend made before passing. The next morning, to save time, he uses a teleportation stone to travel back to the Moon Sanctuary. Thanks to a well-timed concealment skill, the three of them manage to slip past the surrounding guards unnoticed. Afterward, Jing visits the guild to ask about the summons, and as luck would have it, the appraisal room staff provides the answer. It turns out the skeleton jade he brought in earlier possessed a magical signature that perfectly matched the residual mana found on the great sword that flew into the palace. By following that trail, the royals realized Jing was the expert who took down the special grade skeleton knight. The one summoning him is none other than Princess Leon, the very woman whose bedroom that sword crashed into. Apparently, she has taken a personal interest in him, which, to be honest, makes Jing panic instantly. He immediately rushes back to consult Shuni. After hearing the details, Shuni makes a bold guess. Leon likely wants to recruit Jing by offering a political marriage to bolster the kingdom's strength. This possibility only makes Jing feel more disgusted with the way the palace operates. However, on the following day, when Jing finally meets Leon, she presents the great sword without a word, watching closely for his reaction. After listening to Jing's half-true description of the events, Leon concludes that he doesn't harbor any malicious intent. You see, adventurers who show this much talent are usually chosen ones, and the palace typically tries to recruit them. Since some have tried to use such invitations to assassinate royalty, Leon used her intuition skill to confirm that Jing isn't a threat. With the air cleared, it's time to get down to business. Jing fully expects her to bring up the marriage proposal, but instead, she simply asks for a duel. This sudden twist practically makes his brain short-circuit. Meanwhile, somewhere deep within the palace, a dark shadow suddenly attacks a passerby, just as Jing is led into a secret chamber. To his utter surprise, we see that a teleportation tube is hidden here, and with a few quick movements from Princess Leon, the group vanishes instantly. They reappear in another secret chamber, where Leon, clearly eager for action, immediately insists that Jing choose a weapon from the collection. After he picks one at random, Leon grabs a massive greatsword and charges at him before he can even say a word, sparking an immediate duel. As the battle erupts, Jing quickly gauges Leon's strength and decides to suppress his own power to match her level exactly. He takes the initiative and launches an attack, but after a series of fierce exchanges, neither side has gained the upper hand. Jing then activates his Fire Flash skill. Leon, seeing this, counters by activating the exact same skill. In the next heartbeat, Jing lunges forward while Leon swings her massive blade downward with terrifying force. He hadn't expected such a massive commitment to the strike. As the dust clears, a deep fissure is left in the floor. To be honest, he was lucky to dodge that. Deep down, he knows that if that hit had landed, it might have been the end of him. Jing quickly points out that their skills are evenly matched. He notes that Leon's sword has reached its limit and suggests they call it a draw. Leon, recognizing the logic in his words, agrees to end the duel there. After a short rest, Leon extends an olive branch, telling Jing that if he chooses to serve the kingdom, he will be rewarded beyond his wildest dreams. Without a second thought, he refuses. With Shuni by his side, he finds the idea of a free life far more appealing than royal riches. A little later, the group teleports back to the previous secret chamber, only to find the guards lying unconscious at the entrance. They then spot a high-ranking minister nearby, who appears to be in the middle of casting a powerful spell. Just as the guards move to intervene, Jing feels a wave of nausea and is suddenly teleported away. When he finally opens his eyes again, he finds himself standing in the middle of some ancient ruins. Leon recognizes the place as a sacred ground, and Jing asks about the nearest town. He immediately contacts Shuni to report the news that the minister is being controlled by an outside force, which is a troubling development indeed. They agree to meet in a nearby town, but before heading to the rendezvous, Shuni decides to take Tina back toward the castle. She suspects the mastermind is a war demon, a creature that gains power from weapons and can shift its shape at will. The higher their level, the greater their intelligence and combat power. Given the ability to control humans, she suspects they are facing a level 400 threat. With the help of concealment magic, the two of them manage to slip into the dungeon unnoticed to investigate further. After successfully knocking out the guards, Shuni opens the room where the minister is being held. Just as she prepares to release him from his abnormal state, several tentacles suddenly lunge at her from the shadows. However, Shuni is well prepared and, with a few swift movements, she slices the tentacles to pieces. The threat is neutralized in an instant, showing just how little effort it takes for someone of her caliber. She finds herself facing an old enemy from 500 years ago, despite Shuni's overwhelming power and the ease with which she severs the war demon's limbs. The events of 5 centuries past have given the war demon a strange sense of confidence. She believes that the high humans have long since abandoned this world's inhabitants. She claims the human realm is destined for an end, mockingly calling Shuni nothing more than a pathetic, discarded soul. It's a classic villainous monologue, really. The demon attempts to use these psychological taunts to expand the darkness in Shuni's heart, hoping she will fall and become a creature ruled by hatred. To her surprise, Shuni doesn't fall for the trap at all. She remains entirely unmoved by the demon's words, which is quite refreshing to see. Before the war demon can even react, a flash of cold steel ends her existence. Afterward, Shuni brings Tina and the minister to see the king. She briefly explains the war demon's invasion and assures the king that the teleported princess is in no danger, so he needn't worry too much. She then takes her leave immediately to reunite with Jing. Tina assumes they will need to prepare a carriage for the journey ahead, but Shuni simply informs her that traveling on foot will be more than sufficient. A bit of light exercise never hurt anyone, after all. Jing never expected that the white-haired maid, dressed so elegantly, would not only outshine everyone, but also be bold enough to grab his arm in public. She makes him the absolute center of attention at the banquet without a hint of hesitation. Even more surprising is what happens later under the romantic moonlight. Deep down, he was caught completely off guard when Shuni chose that moment to confess her feelings to him. We return to a short time ago, when Jing and Princess Leon were first teleported to the sanctuary. This so-called sacred ground is actually a ruined city, destroyed during the height of its glory. It is said that the monsters here require several chosen ones to defeat. Fortunately for them, Leon's massive greatsword was teleported along with her. Although it's her first time here, she had studied the sanctuary's layout back at the palace. She explains that there are gates in all 4 directions, and near each large gate, there is a smaller door that likely contains the mechanism to open it. In order to find an exit as quickly as possible, Jing decides to leap onto the high wall to get a better view of their surroundings. Jing attempts to observe the surroundings from the wall, but in the next moment, he suddenly reappears back on the ground. Leon watches this, completely baffled, as he tries to jump up again. The same thing happens once more. He tries a different spot, but the result remains unchanged. At this point, Jing begins to understand the underlying cause of this strange phenomenon. He tells Leon to follow him, and before long, they find themselves in an alleyway where they discover a glowing orb. This confirms exactly what Jing had suspected from the start. The presence of this orb means the area functions like a dungeon, where one must follow a specific path to reach the exit. It's a bit restrictive, to be perfectly honest. The system is designed so that if you deviate from the path, you are forcibly returned to your starting point. To escape, they must use the glowing orbs as their guiding markers. These orbs serve as teleportation points to the next location. To be safe, Jing decides to scout ahead on his own first to ensure the way is clear. After confirming it's safe, he returns and brings Leon along to teleport to the next area. Soon, Jing notices on his map that there are monsters nearby. They arrive to find a ghost mummy waiting for them. As the battle begins, the creature immediately unleashes a powerful, swirling tornado. Leon, having never faced such a creature before, feels a bit of stage fright. Seeing this, Jing reassures her that he will be the one to interrupt the monster's spellcasting. He tells her that all she needs to do is deliver a single, full-power strike. Jing then pulls out a weapon and successfully breaks the momentum of the tornado. Leon seizes the opportunity and slashes at the monster with all her might. However, this isn't quite enough to finish it off, so Jing steps in to deliver the final blow. After that, when the two of them teleport to the next location, a giant slime suddenly blocks their path. It's quite a formidable obstacle, standing right in their way. Mistaking it for a weakling, Leon charges forward, only to end up trapped and bound by the slime's tentacles. Jing can only sigh as he prepares to step in and save her. He moves quickly to intervene and free her from the creature's grasp. After rescuing Leon, Jing takes a moment to assess the situation. He explains that slimes can make physical strikes and slashes completely ineffective. Thus, the two decide to combine their strengths to take the creature down together. Jing unleashes fire magic against the slime to expose its core, allowing Leon to follow up with a finishing strike. Once the slime is dealt with, things take an awkward turn. Leon notices that Jing is intentionally keeping his back turned to her. At his quiet reminder, she realizes that the slime's digestive fluids have corroded her clothing. Jing produces a set of new clothes for Leon to change into, and after that, they continue their journey toward the exit. As they travel, a new conversation begins. Jing asks Leon what kind of magic skills she can use. To his surprise, she admits she only knows basic spells, which is a bit concerning given the dangers of the sanctuary. Since her basic magic was proving useless, Jing decided that for their future battles, he would teach Leon the advanced technique of magic enchantment. By using even low-level spells, she could enchant her weapon and freely change its elemental attributes. This way, even without powerful magic of her own, she could handle various situations. However, this technique requires a weapon of at least legendary rank. Otherwise, the blade simply cannot withstand the enchantment and would shatter. Leon was quite overwhelmed by such a precious gift, insisting she couldn't accept such a favor for free. Little did she know, Jing didn't care for the kingdom's treasures at all. He kept a straight face and convinced her that using this skill to protect the people was the greatest reward he could possibly receive. To be honest, he's quite good at being persuasive when he needs to be. A little later, just as the two were about to reach the exit, their path was blocked by a strange egg. Before their eyes, the egg began to hatch at a visible speed. A corpse mummy emerged, radiating a natural ice attribute, and immediately launched an attack toward them. It was a rather cold welcome, to say the least. Fortunately, Jing reacted quickly and pulled Leon to safety. He planned to act as bait once again, allowing Leon to find the right moment to strike from behind. And so, the two of them proceeded with the battle exactly as planned. Jing used throwing stars to draw the monster's fire, giving Leon the opening she needed to land a flurry of blows. Unfortunately, her attacks barely left a scratch. Instead of being defeated, the monster was merely enraged. Seeing this, Jing had to step in with fire magic for some close-quarters combat. Just as he thought the creature was finished, it restored itself to its original state in the very next second. They were forced to retreat temporarily to rethink their strategy. Based on the battle so far, Jing made a calculated deduction. He suspected that the abnormal regeneration was because the creature was a magical construct. There was likely a hidden magic circle nearby, allowing it to self-regenerate, and he guessed it was located on the exit door's mechanism. Which makes sense, really. He decided to send Leon to open the door and destroy the circle while he stayed behind to duel the creature alone and buy her some time. Now that Leon wasn't by his side, Jing could finally unleash his full strength. He immediately removed his self-imposed limiters to face the threat. As the monster lunged at him, Jing prepared for a battle of pure endurance. Meanwhile, Leon successfully located the door engraved with the magic circle. On the other side, Jing was moving with terrifying speed. In just 2.5 seconds, he had cut the monster down over 30 times. Seeing no other choice, Jing was about to use a sealing spell when the creature reacted. A white sphere suddenly manifested on the creature's chest, and in the next moment, Jing felt a powerful suction force pulling at him after he unleashed a magic strike. Our protagonist discovered that the white sphere was absorbing all of his attacks, and just as he considered rushing forward to shatter it, something changed. His body was suddenly enveloped by a golden light, and the pulling sensation vanished. He then attempted to sever the monster's wings to test its defenses. Realizing the creature could no longer regenerate its limbs, Jing didn't hold back and immediately unleashed a powerful finishing move. With the monster defeated, the two of them finally managed to escape the dangerous Holy Land. Meanwhile, Shuni felt a wave of relief upon hearing that Jing was safe. However, when she learned he would be spending the night alone with Leon, she claimed she wasn't angry. Her actions, of course, suggested otherwise. The moment she hung up, she ordered Yang Yin to head there at full speed. Unfortunately, the distance was too great, and Leon and Jing still had to camp together. That night, as Leon reflected on the events at the Holy Land, she felt an even stronger urge to recruit Jing to serve the kingdom. She even leaned against him quite affectionately. She couldn't quite understand why she felt so relaxed and safe in his presence. The next morning arrived, and Jing was alarmed to see thick smoke rising in the distance. Upon closer inspection, we see it was a massive horde of monsters. The creatures were heading straight for the nearby town of Balmel. Leon speculated that a monster overflow was likely occurring. This so-called overflow happens when the magic within the Holy Land accumulates to a certain point and is released in the form of monsters. Jing wondered why they were targeting Balmel specifically, and Leon explained that since the Holy Land's surroundings are protected, the monsters have nowhere else to go. To prevent the overflow from spreading further, the two used a teleportation circle to reach Balmel, deciding to split up to cover more ground. Leon went to inform the local lord, while Jing headed toward the Adventurers Guild. Once there, he successfully secured an audience with the guild master. Naturally, the guild master was hesitant to trust information provided by a complete stranger, at least until Jing produced a certain letter. A nearby attendant immediately recognized it as a recommendation from Moon's lyric, causing the guild master's attitude to shift instantly. Money and status do talk, after all. He quickly ordered his subordinates to issue an emergency notice. Later, as Jing went to reunite with Leon, a shop named Meow Paradise caught his eye. The shop gave him a strange sense of déjà vu. Just as he was piecing his thoughts together, Shuni called to say she had arrived in Balmel. Jing instructed Shuni to find the local lord and sign up for the defense battle. After saying his goodbyes to her, he prepared for the coming storm. Our protagonist happened to run into Beilit, the support character of an old friend from his gaming days, and as they caught up, Jing began to wonder. He recalled that shop called Meow Paradise, and Beilit explained it belonged to Jing's friend, Lifeng Meow. This news caught him quite off guard. Beilit then revealed that Shadow and Sacred were also here in Balmel. This was a lot to process, as these three players were supposed to be dead. How could they still be alive in this world? Beileit hadn't expected Jing to be so shocked, especially since he had a list of other players here. It turns out that quite a few people never actually left the game world, and many players had fallen victim to their cruelty in the past. He hadn't expected such people to still exist. Beileit went on to say that the first person in this world to suggest hunting these player killers was Shuni. Seeing that Jing seemed completely unaware of this, Beileit remarked that Shuni's secrecy was practically an act of betrayal. He joked that even a subordinate should be punished for such things, though, to be honest, it was clearly just Beileit's sense of humor. Jing knew Shuni would never truly betray him, but he couldn't help but wonder why she hid it. For now, however, that mystery had to wait. The primary task was dealing with the approaching monster horde. The next day, everyone was summoned by the Lord to discuss a strategy. Since there was still some time before the horde arrived, Shuni took it upon herself to train the soldiers so they could perform better on the battlefield. After returning to the moon's shrine, Jing began refining his equipment to prepare for the swarm. A brand new divine weapon was nearly ready. A few nights later, the moment finally arrived as a massive wave of monsters lunged toward them through the darkness. Before the others could even get into position, Shuni immediately unleashed her ultimate move against the first wave of opponents. She didn't hold back for a single second. Under her wide-range magic bombardment, many monsters were vaporized instantly, yet an endless stream of creatures continued to pour forward. Since Shuni couldn't use such a massive spell a second time so soon, Jing decided it was time to take matters into his own hands. He charged forward, his blade cutting through the air with lethal precision. Beside him, Tina refused to be outdone by the others. She poured all her magic into a single explosive arrow, while even Leon felt inspired to join the fray and hunt down the elite monsters. Leon tried to take on an elite monster alone, but its strength completely overwhelmed him. Tina wanted to provide support, but her magic was entirely spent. She couldn't even aim her arrows in such a short time. Just at the critical moment, Will appeared to save Leon from his desperate situation. The two of them combined their skills to defeat the elite creature. It turns out Millie's foresight had predicted the beast's attack, so she sent Will to help. Meanwhile, our protagonist moved deep into the front lines. Seeing no one around, he donned his disguised armor and, with a single punch, he neutralized the elite monster chasing the rear guard. To avoid any accidental injuries, he told the others to retreat quickly. It was time for him to show off. Although his cursed weapon constantly pulsed with murderous intent, as a high-level human, Jing was naturally unaffected by its dark influence. It was then that he spotted the mastermind behind the monster tide, the staff demon. The creature immediately launched a mental assault toward him. Such petty tricks couldn't harm him, but the soldiers behind him were tortured by the psychic pressure until Jing's own head began to throb. Taking advantage of the fact that the soldiers were distracted, he released his limiters and, with lightning speed, ended the threat with a single strike. After a long night of fighting, the monster tide ended with 0 casualties. To celebrate the victory, the Lord organized a grand banquet. Jing was certainly enjoying the spotlight, standing with a girl on each arm, but he didn't expect Leon to come walking straight toward him. Leon greeted him with such warmth and enthusiasm that it immediately caught Shuni's attention. She suspiciously asked what had happened that night. This sent Jing into a momentary panic. He hurriedly explained they had only discussed equipment and magic, insisting it was a perfectly innocent night. A very peaceful, ordinary night, in his own words. However, Leon didn't seem to mind stirring the pot, whether it was intentional or just a bit of playful mischief. Even if it was just a joke, Shuni clearly felt uncomfortable and made a quick excuse to leave. The observant Tina saw her chance. She immediately created an opportunity for Jing to be alone with Shuni by dragging Leon away to pour some juice. Jing understood the hint instantly. He caught up with Shuni, who coincidentally had something to tell him. It was the very topic he wanted to ask about, the remaining players in this world. There were still many players and player killers left. Shuni had kept this from him because, during the death game, Jing's girlfriend had been murdered by them. After that tragedy, he had become cold and distant, pushing everyone away. Shuni feared that knowing the truth would bring those dark days back. She feared he would revert to that cold version of himself. Back then, Shuni hadn't yet developed her own consciousness, so she could endure it, but now she simply couldn't bear the thought. She didn't want to see our protagonist become that person again. Jing, however, told Shuni to stop blaming herself, as he was truly happy she was by his side in this world. Shuni's presence gave him the warmth of a family, and as for the secrets she had kept, he had no intention of dwelling on them anymore. From now on, whatever happens, they would face it together rather than burying it deep inside. To be honest, that was a heavy burden for anyone to carry alone. Then she asked the question that truly mattered. That woman was Marina. Do you still love her? The question caught him completely off guard. That lingering feeling remained unchanged, and while he was still lost in thought, Shuni knew he couldn't forget the person from his past. Even so, she had no intention of giving up. In a bold move, she leaned in and kissed him directly. She declared she wouldn't let go because she truly likes Jing. She acknowledged that he might eventually return to his original world, but she firmly believed that what she felt for him in this moment was real. We return to the aftermath of these emotions, where things are never quite as simple as they seem. It seems some things are simply beyond calculation, even for someone as prepared as he is. While life rarely offers a perfect resolution, he felt the need to express his own fire and resolve. He took a moment to appreciate the gravity of the situation, perhaps even reflecting on the journey thus far. And here we see another beautiful, yet fleeting moment in their story. Deep down, a new rhythm was beginning to take hold, one that left no room for doubt. But as we look closer, a sharper, more painful reality begins to emerge. What appeared to be a blessing was gradually revealed to be a symbol of misfortune for those waiting in the shadows. The only fate awaiting her seemed to be humiliation or death, for this stunning white-haired elf was now nothing more than another item on an auction block. Little did the young girl know, however, that in this dark place, she was about to meet the salvation of her life. The man's name is Zagan, known to the world as one of the most evil sorcerers alive. He has just spent his entire fortune to buy this young girl. Everyone assumes that falling into his hands means a fate worse than death, but they have no idea that this is actually the very first time our lifelong single protagonist has ever fallen in love at first sight. In this world, most sorcerers are truly wicked beings. In their obsessive pursuit of magical perfection, they resort to any means for their experiments. This particular sorcerer, for instance, intended to flay the skin right off this red-haired girl's face, seeing her as a perfect magical medium. Zagan, however, is a rare exception among his kind. He not only steps in to kill the man, but even returns the unconscious girl to her town. Like other sorcerers, Zagan is obsessed with magic, rarely ever stepping foot outside his own territory. To put it simply, he is something of a magical shut-in. But unlike his peers, our protagonist has absolutely no interest in the dark, cruel arts involving human sacrifices. Today, Zagan's only friend, a purple-haired sorcerer, comes knocking. It is through him that Zagan learns the news of the fall of one of the 13 demon kings. These demon kings represent the absolute pinnacle of all sorcery, and the title alone grants immense magical power, even allowing them to treat lower-ranked sorcerers as mere servants. However, even though sorcerers enjoy incredibly long lives, their limit is roughly 1,000 years. One of the 13 kings has finally reached that limit and passed away. Yet, what truly catches Zagan's interest isn't the death itself, but an upcoming auction, where the demon king's legacy will be sold. However, after successfully buying the elf girl, Zagan finds himself completely at a loss for words. We must remember, he is a seasoned social recluse. How on earth is he supposed to know how to talk to a girl? To be honest, he's quite out of his depth. Hearing the girl's fearful words, Zagan hurriedly explains that he has no intention of killing her. In fact, it would be quite troublesome for him if she were to die. But in the girl's eyes, this new master simply doesn't want her to die too quickly, and the strange torture devices nearby only confirm her fears, unaware that these actually belonged to the previous lord of the castle. In reality, Zagan was simply too lazy to throw those things away and had left them there. Seeing the misunderstanding deepen, our awkward protagonist tries to change the subject. But even a simple task like asking for the girl's name makes him so nervous he can barely speak. To be honest, his social skills are practically non-existent. Fortunately, the girl is the one to break the silence. She tells him her name is Neffy, and if that is too difficult to pronounce, her master can simply call her Neff. She explains that she has no surname because she is a child of a curse, a heavy burden for someone so young to carry. Zagan, trying to sound composed, asks why someone like her would end up being bought by him in the first place. He tells her she doesn't need to know exactly what he said during the auction, trying to maintain his mysterious sorcerer persona. But the moment the words leave his mouth, he regrets his cold tone. He certainly can't admit that he fell in love at first sight. Imagine telling a pure, innocent elf girl that you spent your entire life savings on her because of a crush. Yes, that would sound quite suspicious. He realizes that if he said that, she would undoubtedly view him as a total creep. Forcing himself to stay calm, he decides to find her a room. However, to Neffy's ears, being told to pick a room sounds like she is being asked to choose the place where she will eventually die. When Zagan explains once more that he has no intention of killing her, Neffy is genuinely confused. She doesn't understand why he would treat her this way. She assumes that regardless of her purpose, a slave's life always ends in tragedy. It is only now that Zagan truly realizes the depth of her trauma. Everyone knows the fate of a slave. They either become a sacrifice for a ritual or a lab rat for some cruel magical experiment. He isn't sure what she meant by being a child of a curse, but he knows it can't be anything good. It's a lonely title, to say the least. He suspects that before she was captured, she likely had no place to call home. In that regard, our protagonist understands her better than anyone. Zagan himself never knew his surname or his parents. His earliest memories are of surviving in a literal trash heap, struggling just to exist. Even the name Zagan wasn't something he chose. It was simply a label others forced upon him long ago. As the two of them walk up the stairs, Neffy suddenly slips. Luckily, Zagan is quick enough to catch her before she falls. After a brief warning to be careful, he finds himself holding her hand. It takes him a few seconds to realize just how close they are. Seeing her startled expression, he clumsily claims the slippery step was a trap he set on purpose. Even he knows how ridiculous that sounds. Even he feels his excuse is incredibly forced, so to ease the awkwardness, he casually tosses a high-level spell into the room, blowing the door right off its hinges. The blast is so powerful that it completely obliterates every single trap hidden inside, leaving the space entirely empty and safe. With the area cleared, we see that our protagonist has effectively neutralized any potential threat in the most dramatic way possible. It was a display of raw power that, quite frankly, was a bit of an overreaction for a simple room inspection. Neffy watches in silence, likely wondering where on earth she has ended up and what kind of person her new master truly is. Instead of a warm welcome, she is met with explosions and crumbling architecture, which is hardly the best way to behave as a host. Deep down, Zagan knows he is making a mess of things, but in his mind, this is just another day in the life of a sorcerer. To be honest, he is struggling more with this social interaction than he ever has with his most dangerous magical experiments.